Hello, Coolman229 here, and it's Christmas month again. I put a poll up on my blog a couple weeks ago and to see which video game series people wanted me to talk about for Christmas month. And the winner, by a landslide, was The Legend of Zelda. So we're getting a whole month of Zelda topics. The first topic was submitted by Angel89, and her topic is: you and I both agree Ganondorf is an awesome villain. We also both agree that while the other games are still awesome, the best incarnation of Ganon/Ganondorf is from Wind Waker. In your own words, what makes him both an effective villain and character, and what sets him apart compared to other Ganon incarnations that cemented him as your favorite Ganon? I love Wind Waker. Wind Waker was the first Zelda that I personally bought and played through. I mean, granted, I'd played, A Link to the Past before that, and I think a little bit of work around time, but Wind Waker was the first Zelda that I bought as a kid, and I played through. I played that game. I put 254 hours into that game, and it is still one of my top Zelda games. One of the biggest standouts in it is the fact that the story is actually really good, and specifically one of my favorite aspects of the story is Ganondorf, oddly enough. But really, like Andrew asks, what sets him apart from the other Ganons? Now, one thing that's very much a standout with Ganondorf in Wind Waker is the fact that he's not as crazy as his other incarnations. If you look at, the Ocarina, his past self in Ocarina of Time, his Twilight Princess counterpart, and his Downfall timeline counterpart, who's basically just become a monster, he isn't like that at all. In fact, he's extremely, sort of calm and somber. And at some points, I could even call him a bit regal. Sure, he's a bastard, too, but he's never really as, pointlessly, as his other counterparts, and it's kind of interesting. Ultimately, what really made him kind of stand out to me, and what was the standout moment when I was playing this for the first time, was when he just sits and he's talking about how his motivation for taking Hyrule was the fact that he was jealous the fact of their prosperity, and the fact that they had the winds and the green plains and everything was prosperous, while he and the Gerudo were stuck in the desert, just, suffering, and had to go to Hyrule in order to get stuff, especially boyfriends. And I'm sure that, it's because it's heavily implied in Ocarina of Time that there is, communication between the Gerudo and the, people in, Castletown, and I'm sure that they do trade. But, I'm sure that Ganondorf hated the fact that he had to rely on other people. And of course, being, the reincarnation of Demise's hatred, he's not exactly a sane person. So his plan is just to, take over the world, and when he does that, he kind of ends up destroying it. Good job, Ganondorf. But the way he delivers that line in Wind Waker is what really kind of gets to me. Because he just kind of seems so sad. Everything now that he had strived for was now stuck under the sea. And he wants that, yes, and he's going to do nothing but be crazy and try to take over the world and rule Hyrule with the Triforce. But there's just always a part of me when I look at Wind Waker Ganondorf that I can't help but feel a little sorry for him. When you look at his Twilight Princess counterpart, who is unabashedly manipulative and evil, he goes out of his way to be cruel because, after the time spent in the Twilight Realm, he's not exactly, he's not exactly a happy camper. Sure, yeah, Wind Waker Ganondorf was stuck too, but, being stuck in an entirely, foreign world, and that's as odd and crazy as the Twilight Realm, it's, yeah, does things to you. Especially since it's implied to be like, what, hundreds of years since then? But, I mean, and another thing that I found interesting is he never turns into Ganon. Every other version, every other timeline, from the original timeline when at the end of Ocarina of Time to Twilight Princess, and in the Downfall timeline, he's basically just turned into a monster who is just Ganon. Who can still think, mind you, but he's still his pig monster form. Wind Waker Ganon never does that. Ganondorf never does that. Whether he doesn't want to, can't, or, or has other reasons for it is left unexplained and really up to player interpretation. But I do think that's interesting. Well, the way he fights is very different than other Ganondorfs, and there's something more refined about this Ganondorf. He fights very elegantly with twin swords, which probably is a reference to, some of the fighting styles of the Gerudo we see in Ocarina of Time. Rather than, with a big sword like he does in Twilight Princess, or, with a trident like he does in the old games, or just being a raging monster like in the end of Ocarina of Time. There's something. I mean, he never stops fighting like that. He always fights with the twin swords, and he's like cha cha cha. And I just have to say, I can't see any other version of Ganondorf fighting like that. I don't know if there's honestly, really, there's so much to this Ganondorf that we never kind of really delve into, and as interesting as he is, I would just love to see more of him. Because I don't even know, I can't even really kind of put my finger on it. I just love this Ganondorf. I find him so interesting. And, maybe it's the fact that he's not crazy. Oh, no, he is crazy. I take that back. He's very crazy. He's still a power-hungry monster. But he has the sanity to kind of sit back and to explain why. It's not just I'm evil and I wanted to take over Hyrule because I'm the bad guy. It's more of I wanted to help my people. I wanted that prosperity for them. And, no. I mean, and you just can't help but feel just a little bit sympathetic for him. Now, granted, then he tries to kill Link, but, that's besides the point. I mean, Ganondorf is the villain, and he makes that abundantly clear. But he stands out from other incarnations again, and just because, and especially his counterparts, his direct counterparts along the other timelines. Because if you compare Wind Waker to Twilight Princess, there's such a stark difference in those Ganondorfs. Where Wind Waker's Ganondorf is kind of more calm and more refined, Twilight Princess's Ganondorf is kind of unhinged. Especially when you see him in the throne room at the end of the game, and he's just kind of like... And, he's creepy. And even using, even possessing Zelda's body and making her fight Link. Yeah. And then his counterparts along the other games, I don't really know what would be the exact, comparison. I mean, maybe since considering the first game after, significant, time, it would be a Link to the Past. And talking about Ganondorf's plot to take over, pretending to be a Ganon. I forgot how to pronounce his that name. But, there's just something so different about Wind Waker. Yeah, he's going to take over the world, but he's going to have a little bit of class while he's doing it. And that really just, it makes me like his character so much. Honestly, it's kind of hard to really explain this in detail. I mean, now talking about it really makes me want to go back and replay Wind Waker. Still have an unfinished file for HD. Might get to that sometime. yeah, so much about Wind Waker was good, and the way it took such a somber approach to Hyrule, and even at the end of the game, basically just flooding Hyrule completely. Not unprotected by the bubble that protected Hyrule from the Great Sea. It's honestly a really sad game. Despite its cutesy graphics, it's really got one of the saddest stories. Well, then again, a lot of Zelda games can be sad. Looking at you, Twilight Princess. But I think this is the first time that we were ever... Honestly, I think this is the first and so far only time that I can remember out of the games that we're given a Ganondorf that has any shred of sympathy to him. Even in Ocarina of Time, before he became unhinged, like in the Downfall and the Child timeline, it's... there's really nothing much to really sympathize with him. He's a crazy lunatic. He's a power-hungry warmonger. So, yeah, you don't sympathize with him. But when Wind Waker Ganondorf kind of steps back and talks to you about why, it's like, man, that hit me hard as a kid. And I think it really kind of affected the way I sold villains. I was like, let's see, what was I? Like, 13 or 14 when that game came out? Yeah, it kind of had an impact on me, seeing the fact that they presented you with this guy who had been doing horrible things, and for the first time I think that was really the first time that I ever saw a villain when I was a kid that was presented in a slightly sympathetic light. You can still understand why he's evil. You can understand why he's evil. You can understand why he's done this, and he does have reasonable motivations for doing stuff. But obviously, he's doing things in the exact wrong way, and that's what makes him the villain. But still, he has a bit of fitting sound, and that's what makes him, interesting. You can understand completely why he's doing it. Other Ganondorfs, you can just say, yeah, they're just kind of crazy douchebags. This Ganondorf, not so much. You can look at him and say, you know what, if things were different, I would have supported him. Honestly, I definitely support the Gerudo having a better life. Being stuck in the desert, I'm sure, that's their land, but I'm sure that they would appreciate having more. And Ganondorf ultimately was he was a corruption of those ideas. And really, I don't think we've seen... I don't know if we'll ever see another Ganondorf like that. And really, that's what makes Twilight... That's what makes Wind Waker's Ganondorf stand out so much. And why, honestly, he's my favorite... Honestly, why he's my favorite Ganondorf. Well, that about wraps it up for today. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. If you want to submit a topic, you just make sure to follow the rules I'll post down below on Tumblr and YouTube, and make sure to follow the rules. If you want to send me a topic, make sure it's something fictional, not something super real world like politics or anything. I don't really want to talk about anything like that in my topic videos. If you want to submit a topic, if you're on YouTube, you can simply comment down below on what topic you want me to talk about. And if you're on Tumblr, you can send me an ask and put topic, and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. And if you're not sure if I'm familiar with something enough to do a topic video on it, send it anyway, or just ask me, because I will tell you. Well, that's about it for today, and we're only getting started with our Zelda topics. And the next few weeks we'll have some really good topics in store, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching.